This is WYNT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. More than a dozen people were killed this past weekend in shootings across the country. New CBS News polls show most Americans support federal action on gun control. Congress could be ready to vote on new legislation this week, though it remains to be seen what, if any, new measures will ultimately make it to the president's desk. CBS's Serena Marshall reports from the White House.
It is enough.
Amid an outbreak of deadly mass shootings over the weekend, the District Attorney of Philadelphia is calling for change.
Any legislator who is not willing to put the lives of innocent bystanders, of women and children and young adults above their political future belongs out of office.
Demands for federal gun control legislation continue to grow, including from the White House, where President Biden has been pushing for universal background checks, federal red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban, or at least raising the age to purchase one to 21. A new CBS News poll shows a majority of Americans also support those provisions.
We have structurally problems when you have large disconnects between what voters say they want and what happens in the U.S. Congress.
The House could pass a broad gun reform package that contains the president's wish list as soon as this week, but is unlikely to make it through the evenly divided Senate.
A bipartisan group of senators has expressed optimism negotiating towards a more narrow bill, which also could include mental health and school safety provisions.
Those core components, I hope, will be part of a package that we can get 60 votes to pass.
In the meantime, some Democratic-led states are taking their own action.
We're raising the age of semi-automatic weapons so no 18-year-old can walk in on their birthday and walk out with an AR-15.
Monday, New York's governor signed a package of gun reform bills into law. Serena Marshall, CBS News, the White House.
Starting tomorrow, Congress will hold multiple public hearings examining recent gun massacres in the U.S. Witnesses from the Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas shootings are expected to testify, and so are family members of the victims. As the gun debate rages on nationally, Lexington is dealing with its own rise in gun violence. This afternoon, police held a groundbreaking ceremony for the soon-to-be new East Sector Roll Call Center. At 7,800 square feet, the new facility will allow space for training, a larger roll call room, offices, and a bike room. Police Chief Lawrence Weathers noted the location at Veterans Park will put officers closer to major traffic arteries and neighborhoods along Man o' War Boulevard.
Nobody's dispatched from here, and officers are out patrolling, but we hope that the access here will make it easier for people to come to us and bring information to us as well.
Police say construction will start in the next few weeks. They hope the building will be complete within a year. So far this year, Lexington has recorded 22 homicides. 17 of them were gun-related. Florida's governor is saying no way to the Tampa Bay Rays. Governor Ron DeSantis used his line-item veto powers to eliminate $35 million for a new Rays training facility, and a source familiar with the internal conversation says the decision was partly because the baseball team spoke out against gun violence. But DeSantis says he eliminated the funding because he does not support giving taxpayer dollars to professional sports stadiums. The new complex also needed the Rays and local governments to each put up $35 million, which they had yet to officially commit to. The woman charged in a DUI crash that killed a 10-year-old girl has pleaded guilty. Sequoia Collins was 24 when police say she was speeding, ran a red light, and hit a car in Lexington. 2 children were hurt, and 10-year-old Alexia Gomez Hernandez would later die from her injuries. With charges of manslaughter, assault, wanton endangerment, and DUI, Collins is facing a maximum of 32 years in prison. Mothers Against Drunk Driving President Alex Ott says she hopes this sets a precedent.
So many states, including ours, don't treat driving under the influence like the violent and potentially deadly crime that it is. In this case, it was a deadly crime. It was a deadly choice. And so I hope going forward, this does set a precedent for holding people accountable for the choices that they've made.
Commonwealth's Attorney Luana Redcorn says Collins' sentencing is set for July 28.
Well, for many of us, we saw a dry day around the mountains today, but already seeing a change in the weather, especially the further west that you'd go. Getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's head outside right now as we look at the Mountain Parkway at Slade. We still have the sun out in portions right on the Wolf-Powell County line there at Slade. Buffalo Mountain here in Perry County, some filtered sunshine, but still beautiful blue skies behind that, and still sunshine out there as well. You notice those temperatures a little lower out to the west, low to mid 70s as opposed to the 80s everywhere else. Dew points are also coming up out to the west. You notice those dew points are higher the further west that you go. That's because we're dealing with a couple of rounds of showers and thunderstorms. In fact, already working into portions of the mountains, portions of Wayne and McCreary County getting in on some heavy rain right now. Nothing here is severe, but as we head towards Somerset and areas just east along the Highway 80 Hal Rogers Parkway corridor and up towards Mount Vernon right now, seeing some downpours. And even as we go a little bit further north, just north of our area, as you maybe head, you know where the Mountain Parkway splits off from I-64 there, not far from Winchester. That's where we're getting a little heavy thunderstorm as well. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect for central portions of Kentucky. Does not include any of our counties, but a big line of thunderstorms working through the Commonwealth, and they'll eventually be on our doorstep as we head later on tonight in a weakening fashion. So we will have showers and storms with us. Mid-60s overnight with those southerly winds keeping the warm and moist air in place. I'll have the very latest on our shower and storm chances coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Evan, thank you. In the war on Ukraine, Russia has targeted Kyiv for the first time in more than a month. Missiles rained down on Ukraine's capital yesterday, while both sides kept on fighting for control of a key city in eastern Ukraine. CBS's Chris Livesay is following the attacks in both regions.
A building burst into flames. Russia claims it struck tanks inside, donated from Ukrainian allies. But Leonid, a local resident, says there's nothing in there but rail cars. It's a repair shop, not a military factory, he says. Vladimir Putin is determined to show he can still strike whenever and wherever he wants by air, far from the battlefields of eastern Ukraine, which have crept into Olena Holovka's front yard. We lived peacefully, she says. Now we have nothing left. The war has never been bloodier. Ukraine says it's losing between 60 and 100 troops per day, roughly twice the number of American soldiers lost daily at the height of the Vietnam War. Russia now occupies 20% of Ukrainian territory, says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who visited the embattled Donbas region far from the capital of Kyiv. In this deadly struggle of tug-of-war, Ukraine has recaptured territory in Severodonetsk and is intent on pushing Russian troops back to their border with the help of advanced long-range missile systems en route from the United States. Once they get here, Vladimir Putin is now vowing Russia will strike new targets in retaliation. But nothing has stopped him from pounding this country for more than 100 days, even turning hunger into a weapon. Russia has blockaded Ukraine's ports. Some 20 million tons of grain destined for the developing world now risk rotting on the docks. Chris Livesay, CBS News, Odessa, Ukraine.
In Odessa, the coast is full of mines. Ukraine says it can't move them until it gets more security guarantees from the West. In the meantime, those food shipments are not going anywhere. President Joe Biden has ordered emergency measures to increase U.S. manufacturing of solar panels, as well as declared a 2-year tariff exemption on panels from Southeast Asia. The actions are part of a plan to jumpstart a key industry in meeting the president's climate change fighting goals. The White House says President Biden's actions aim to increase domestic production of solar panel parts, building installation materials, high-efficiency heat pumps, and other components like cells used for clean energy-generated fuels. A U.S. Postal Service commemorative stamp honoring the former First Lady Nancy Reagan's centennial was unveiled today. First Lady Jill Biden hosted the event at the White House. Reagan's niece, Ann Peterson, the chairman of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, and Postmaster General Louis DeJoy all helped with the reveal. The stamp is based on Mrs. Reagan's official 1987 White House portrait. The artist is painter Aaron Schickler. The stamp's release was delayed a year due to the COVID pandemic. The Forever Stamp's first day of issue will be on July 6th. what would have been Nancy Reagan's 101st birthday. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, your personal information can be the key for a large-scale data breach. We have expert advice on how you can help halt this rising trend.
And we got plenty of chances for wet weather the next few days. I've got the latest on when we can see some more heavy rain coming up.
WYMT News app offers alerts on breaking stories as they happen, customized to the